Once, there was this boy, Tony. He was so lazy and so stubborn and so impossible that one day his own mama said to him, "Out, via! Show your feet to the road and your back to me, and don't you come home till you can earn your own keep." So Tony, he started walking, and by dinner time he was far from home and very hungry. By the side of the road he saw a beautiful garden, and in this garden was every good thing to eat. There were peaches, tomatoes, cucumbers, all kinds of things. Well, his stomach said eat, and Tony, who didn't listen to much, he listened to his stomach, and he was quite full of all good things to eat when Pappy Ogre, the magical giant who owned that garden, came walking by. Pappy Ogre roared, You ate my food. You're a little worm in my garden. Now you owe me. So what is it gonna be? You could work for a year and a day for me, or you could be my dinner." And that's how Tony got his first job. He worked hard for a year and a day, and finally Pappy Ogre came up to him and said, "Allora, it's been a year and a day. I give you your pay. You can go home and visit Mama." And with a flourish, Pappy Ogre gave Tony the lead to a grumpy and mangy old donkey. Tony said, thank you?" "Oh, but no," said Pappy Ogre. "This is no ordinary donkey. With this donkey watch, all you have to do is say, 'Ari, Ari, donkey, donkey, money, money,' and pra-ba-boom, gold comes right out of his behind." And so the gold fell to the ground. Pappy Ogre said to Tony, "Don't tell anyone about this until you get home, gabish? You understand?" "Oh, dear, yes," said Tony. And with coins jingling in his pocket, he started walking home. By and by, Tony came to an inn. He thought to himself, "Why should I go home right away? Why don't I stop, yes, and rest?" So he went to the innkeeper and asked for a room for himself, a special room for his donkey, and the best dinner gold could buy. Now this innkeeper, he was dishonest, and he was also no fool. He was also very curious. How did a scooch like Tony have so much money? Well, Tony ate too much and drank too much and talked too much. He told the innkeeper all about his donkey, and then he fell right asleep into his soup. The innkeeper took Tony's donkey and found one that looked just like it and switched donkeys while Tony was sleeping. The next day, Tony went home with a heavy head and the wrong donkey. Tony's poor mother was just about to eat her little meal of spaghetti with a little bit of olive oil and a little bit of salt and one little sprig of parsley when Tony came waltzing in, pulling his donkey right behind him. "What are you doing?" said Mama. "Oh, welcome me home, Mama. What are you eating? That's garbage." And he threw it out the window. He said, "Mama, you're going to be amazed when you see my donkey." His mother said, "My meal? You're going to be amazed when you see the back of my hand." No, Mama, look. "My donkey, he makes gold. You watch." And he said, "Ari, Ari, donkey, donkey, money, money." And he pulled the sheet off his mama's bed and put it underneath the donkey's behind. But nothing happened. So he yelled it, and then he whispered it, and still nothing happened, except, of course, that steam started to pour out of his mama's ears. So Tony takes her broom and hits the donkey with it, and this poor donkey was so surprised it does what a donkey usually does from the back end. And Mama screamed and took the broom and said, Via, you leave this house, you're going to be the death of me." And she swept him and the donkey and everything else out the door, and Tony went running home to Pappy Ogre. Pappy Ogre said, "Well, did you do as I told you?" "Well, not exactly," said Tony. "Is it back to work for me?" "Yes," said Pappy Ogre. And Tony worked for another year and a day. And then Pappy Ogre comes to him and says, "Va bene, you worked, so I pay. And you can go home. Take this." And he brought out a small, tattered white tablecloth. Tony looked at it and said, "Thank you?" "Oh, but no," says Pappy Ogre. "This is no ordinary tablecloth. With this tablecloth, all you have to do is say, 'Manja, manja, cloth, cloth, food, food,' and everything you could ever want to eat and drink will appear. You close it up, and it's cleaned up. But don't tell anybody about it till you get home, gabish? Why don't you try it?" So Tony said, "Manja, manja, cloth, cloth, food, food." And fa-foom! There was such a feast in front of him, Madonna mia. There was salami, there was cheese, olives, sausages, fish, pasta, wine, fruit, pastries, and espresso. Tony ate enough for a horse and then folded up his tablecloth and was on his way. He was just passing by the inn as the sun was setting. The innkeeper saw him and said, "Hey, Tony, why don't you come in and tell us how you've been?" "Oh, no," says Tony, "I just need a spot to sleep in the stable. As long as I have my tablecloth, I've got my food." Well, Tony went into the stable, and he had another dinner as big as the first. And that foxy innkeeper, he followed him in and watched and listened. And while Tony was sleeping, the innkeeper switched cloths, and Tony went home the next day with hay in his hair and the wrong tablecloth. Oh, you know what he did next, of course. At home, he showed his mother his not magic tablecloth, and what a bella frittata that was. She yelled, she screamed, she swept him out of the house, and Tony went running back to Pappy Ogre. "Back again, huh? Well, did you do as I told you?" said Pappy Ogre. "Well, not exactly," says Tony. "All right, well, back to work for you," says Pappy Ogre. And after another year and a day, Tony wants to go see his mama. All right, says Pappy Ogre. "You worked, so I pay. Here is a stick. No, don't look like that. It's a special stick. With this stick, all you have to say is, 'Let me have it, and it will give something very special to whoever says that.' Go ahead, Tony, why don't you try it?" So Tony tried it, and the stick flew at him and beat him about the head and the shoulders and the head and the shoulders. "Stick, stick, be still, still," said Pappy Ogre, and the stick jumped into his hand. "Now, Tony, don't tell anybody about this stick until you get home. Gabish?" Well, I think that stick was really magical because Tony reached the inn with an idea knocked into his head. The crafty innkeeper was happy to see him. "Well, Tony, what's new? Come in. And Tony said, "I have this very special stick to take home, and I was wondering, could I spend the night in your stable?" "Oh, certainly," said the innkeeper, "of course." And Tony asked, "Could you keep my stick safe while I sleep? Whatever you do, don't say, 'Let me have it, or else you'll see something really spectacular. The person who says that gets something really special." Well, later that night, while Tony pretended to sleep, the innkeeper took his stick and tested it. And it flew about the room, beating him without mercy. The innkeeper's screams woke Tony. He was screaming, "Aiutami, zio cani, aiuto maledetto." Tony ran in and said to the innkeeper, "Have you had enough?" "Oh, yes. "Well, then give me back my donkey," said Tony. "Oh, yes. "And my cloth?" Yes, anything." "Well, then, stick, be still, said Tony, and the stick flew to his hand. Tony took his donkey and his tablecloth and his stick the next day and set out for Mama's house. Now, when Tony's mother saw him coming, she locked all the doors and windows. "Dio m'assiste," she wailed. "You're back again. Oh, and with that donkey, not that donkey." "Oh, let us in, Mama," said Tony. "Oh, no, not you two again. May the devil catch you both. Oh, no, you're not coming into my house." "Wait, watch this, Mama," said Tony. "Let me have it." And how that stick jumped and whacked him, and his mama, being an Italian mama, ran out to save him, and Tony yelled, "Stick, be still, still." "Allora," he said, as he caught the stick and pushed his way inside the house with the donkey on his heels. "Watch this, Mama," he said. "Ari, donkey, money," and the coins clinked and jangled onto the floor. Mama looked up just in time to see the gold spilling everywhere as Tony set the table with his cloth. "Manja, cloth, food," he said, and Tony and his mama sat down to eat a feast so big and so good they are probably eating it still.